Hello, everyone. Very happy to be here. I want to thank the world around and MoMA, in particular Beatrice and Carson, for the invitation to be with you here today. A Gardener's Logic is the title of an article that I co-authored 25 years ago together with Richard Plunce from Columbia University. It referred to the need for conceptual tools capable of introducing uncertainty, ambiguity, and change over time in the design process of cities, landscapes, and infrastructures. It introduced the notion of soft infrastructure, a call for a post-Cartesian, more diversified and multifunctional understanding of the underlying elements that allow most human forms of collective inhabitation, or cities, to exist and function. Over the last 20 years, they turn out particularly urgent due to climate change and the rise of the megacity as the omnipresent future condition for most of the urban world. Certainties need to be revised in today's context, like wheel mobility as a precondition of progress, for example. I could be wrong, but I don't believe that evolution in all its iterations found the wheel to be such a great idea. Example. Nevertheless, we don't hesitate to throw on this idea close to $70 trillion only for construction of hard roads or modern hard roads. And while doing this, disregard almost any other alternative as unaffordable or fantastical. Nothing personal against the wheel. I could have used food production or sanitary infrastructures as an example. What I mean to express is that after breaking 6 out of 9 planetary limits using our normal or rational ways, we reach a point where everything should be up for reconsideration. So, I don't know how many of you know about the history of the Mexico City Valley, and that the original Aztec city of Tenochtitlan was actually an artificial island in Lake Texcoco. This man-built territory, based on the Chinampa construction and agriculture system, was an incredible example of massive habitation in balance with its geography and ecology. An infrastructure that fused within a single territory space for inhabitation, governance, commerce, ritual, cultural, and productive landscapes. At the time the Spanish conquistadors arrived in Mexico City Valley, the population of the city was about 300,000. And in Lake Texcoco area, about 1 million. To put that in perspective, the largest city worldwide was Beijing with 1.2 million. Second was Constantinople with 700,000. In continental Europe, it was Venice with 350,000. And in Northern Europe, it was probably Cologne with only 30,000. After the conquest, the entire valley's ecology and appearance was devastated, and after 500 years is completely unrecognizable. These are actually images taken exactly from the same spot. The process that drained the existing lakes to build a classical European city on top of Tenochtitlan and the massive urban sprawl that followed in the 20th and 21st centuries brought on ironic consequences. What used to be water was now the driest region in the valley. What used to regulate heat, capture carbon, and improve air quality became the opposite. It is one of the reasons for extreme water scarcity and soil subsidence in the region. The main historical cause, also, ironically, of floods in the metropolitan area, especially in poor areas. The image in black and white is from the 50s in Mexico City, downtown, near the Zócalo. The other one was a video I shot just last rain season coming back into the city in one of the poorest areas in the south of the city called Chalco. This is also the cause for a long history of environmental reclamation projects proposed for this area, for the area of the lake. Some of them by important personalities in Mexico, historical personalities like Miguel Ángel de Quevedo, Nabor Carrillo, who was the ideologist of his eponymous lake, or Gerardo Cruzan, who in 1972 managed to convince President Luis Echeverria, who is not related to me, by the way, to preserve 12,000 hectares or 30,000 acres of federal land reserved for ecological and hydrological infrastructure. So this takes us to our project. Parque Ecológico Lago Texcoco is a public and environmental health and justice initiative for the eastern region of the Valley of Mexico. It is a biocultural endeavor based on a logic of environmental services with the objective to benefit all populations, human and all, others, but especially the most vulnerable and disadvantaged. It is a large expanse of land, 40,000 hectares or 35,000 acres, located between the urban fabric of the metropolitan region of Mexico City and its agricultural and rural east. In March 22 of 2022, was declared a natural protected area by President López Obrador and recognized as a wetland of international importance by the Ramsar Convention. This year, it was acknowledged by UNESCO as one of the 10 first hydrological projects worldwide. This protected land represents 11% of Mexico's metropolitan area. It is almost 3 times the size of Manhattan, and it is larger than most parks in cities worldwide. It is a historically neglected region that has suffered hundreds of years of hydrophobic public policies aimed at draining the lakes. This transformed a mostly lacustrine region into a dry and barren land. In this space, we have recovered as many water spots as possible, and we will continue to do so as long as it doesn't endanger human rights to water access. We built social, sport, and cultural facilities which double the available public space infrastructure within a 15-kilometer radius. At full development, the lake park will increase up to 5 times the green areas per inhabitant in neighboring municipalities and an average of 9% of green space available to residents of the metropolitan area of Mexico City. As a carbon sink, it could capture up to 1.5 million tons of carbon emissions per year. So, Parque Ecológico Lago Texcoco is a process rather than a design project. It pursues a behavior rather than an image. So this rendering, for example, is a visualization of a plausible scenario, one that could happen in the near future, but it is not really our project. This is our project, or the image plan of the initial project at least. I call it an aptitudes map, a diagram of what things were, what things are, and what they may come to be with different effort. It is a master strategy that opposes conceptually to a master plan methodology. A strategy differs radically from a plan. It is a general direction rather than a set of directions. Strategies establish open-ended goals in which many different plans may be incorporated. We believe that taming nature has been too long a prevailing system. A project aims instead for a more sensible rationality, one based on notions of potential rather than challenge, to devise feasible self-reinforcing behaviors. So a set of 34 landscape units was our point of departure, devised through chemical and physical analysis of water and soil, research of vegetation and fauna, and readings of potential for remediation, regeneration, or redesign. We called them conditions. And we use them as a horizontal of a matrix with different tools are applied on the vertical. Tools in the broadest of definitions: scientific, architectural, social, cultural, political, etc. To each condition, different tools are applied, and so this matrix is our project. Then we introduce time. Both conditions and tools are flexible, and therefore they adapt, change, or disappear during the evolution of the project to accommodate new demands and or opportunities. So how does this look, and how are we doing this? Well, this is actually what the north of our site looks like, and this is what it looked like before they started to build an airport in part of the area where we are now working, luckily because the airport was stopped 10% into construction already by President López Obrador. So this was supposed to be nothing. And the narrative that was constructed politically was that it was barren land and there was nothing there. So this is a little bit of what nothing looks like and sounds like. Few people are aware that this exists from the city. It's actually the communities on the east, the agricultural communities that have lived on, by the lake, through the lake, and in many ways for the lake, that actually saved it from total destruction. And basically what we are trying to do is just help natural processes that can happen there. So this wall was part of the airport, so we didn't take it out because there was stuff already built there and it didn't make that much sense, but we did reconnect certain areas that weren't destroyed with what is inside. So when we came in, we saw this was the state of before it looked like the other thing, and then it was only barren land. So we built, using the materials that we found on site, we built these dikes or walls, and then forced water into smaller spaces so it could be deeper, and then therefore avoid the extreme evaporation because of the heat island and the extreme infiltration because the land was so thirsty. And with a few rains, let's say, and a little bit of luck, we had a demonstration by nature in 2021. It's sort of the same space started to look like that. And nowadays it looks like this. So it's not, this is not all year long, of course. Now in the winter it's a dry season, so we don't have snow, but we have a lot we have a long dry season, so it looks a little bit different, but it actually looks like that. So we did these roads and we built these looking towers for bird observation, etc. And this is basically how it looks nowadays during the rain season and the months afterwards. So we started to do this all over the site. Not yet everywhere, but we proved that it works quite well, even when it's only temporary. So we built, for example, these pavilions where you have dining rooms, restrooms, internet, tools for bikes, etc. And sometimes, they just become these almost islands in the middle of a park. We also worked to restore Lake Nabor Carrillo, who was one of the ideologists of this process from the 80s, from the 70s, I'm sorry. And this is an amazingly beautiful space, and it was actually where I fell in love with the whole thing. So we worked to restore the walls in it because one of them was sinking, and therefore they weren't able to completely fill it. And I convinced the authorities, and I'm the authority, I have to say, I'm not working this from my office. When I was invited by President López Obrador, he asked me to re-engage a project that I had done 12 years before, or 15 years before him, for the area. But the condition was to work for the government. So I'm a government official right now. I have been for the last 7 years. So it turns out everybody has a price. And anyway, so this space is actually where I fell in love with the whole idea. It's 900 hectares. It's almost like 2.5 times Central Park, only water. It's within the poorest areas of the city, but it was only infrastructure. So the idea is to make it public and to make it accessible to the public. So we built this looking deck, which is basically just a space for observation and playground, etc. And we also built this sports park. It's quite big. It's like 2/3 of Central Park, to give you a sense of idea. It's within it, we built a few things, for example, a visitor center, and then a series of platforms where different sports programs are available. So, for example, the pre-Hispanic ball game, highlight, baseball, football, American football, fountains, labyrinths, looking towers, etc. And we tried to make this as hard as possible in terms of to make it really resilient, because in Mexico there's not a tradition of maintenance of public space. So we did two things: either work with the materials that will behave well over time in the region, or use wood, which is something that ages gracefully, more gracefully than steel, for example. We recycled as much as possible. All the red rock that you see there, it's was used for the runways of the airport that was being built, so we didn't have to impact anything bringing material. And these, for example, are manholes that we needed for the airport that we needed to move. So instead of just sending somewhere, we just rearranged them into certain forms. So this is our pre-Hispanic ball game, our gym, the stadium, which is kind of a volcano crater, some playgrounds, looking towers, picnic areas, soccer, basketball, and just repurposed construction areas that we just didn't want to demolish, but still reuse them, just repurposing them as tracks. This is a first full pipe in a public playground in Mexico, which has been very successful. Our offices, restaurant, cafeteria, etc., looking tower. This was done, some of the projects were done in collaboration with other external offices. So this is one of the cases with Bea Arquitectos, Alejandro Castro, and Locus, Josh and Slaik and Sana Frin. This is our museum, small one, but it sort of tells a little bit about this story. This is a nursery that we built, which was actually the first experiments that we had in terms of techniques. And also it was very successful. We already produced more than 4 million plants. So by now it's already paid for itself. And it allowed us to build this community center or social center within the area of the nursery. That has been also very useful and successful. And so the nice thing is that it's already open. So on weekends, people are beginning to use it. This is not staged. This is actually a guy from Nezahualcóyotl. There's a few leagues, I didn't know that before the project, that play pre-Hispanic ball. And there's a bunch of people already taking over the park for sports in terms of like serious sportsmen, and then some people who are just there for recreation, schools, institutions, and of course, all of the publics. So these guys are also very happy that the airport was canceled. I mean, I could even get as close as I could to this because she was guarding her nest. Some turtles, which are amazing to find there, snakes, all kinds of birds, etc. So the thing is, we're not being nostalgic, and we're not trying to go back to a path where we cannot go back. I mean, no matter how amazing it was. This is not even 15 years ago. I mean, our volcanoes had glaciers. The last glacier on this volcano was extinct in 2023. And I just sadly read that I think in about 15 years, all glaciers in Mexico will be gone. So we cannot really go back, or even less so to past maybe 70 years ago, where this was the everyday reality, exactly where we were working. But we know that we can go from this to this really easily. It's just a question about, stop messing with nature. So basically, we're gonna keep doing that and trying to bring as much water as possible, as long as we don't go, anybody's rights or to access it. Thank you very much.